الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونتوب إليه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. جزاكم الله خير. Thank you. I thought that inshallah ta'ala today I'd like to combine two themes into one, given that one of them has been brought to us through the gift of this Islamic calendar, with the waqfa being tomorrow and the Eid following that inshallah ta'ala. And then the other one is this just sheer coincidence in time that this Eid fell really on the very start of the summer months. And I want to reflect on all of these two ideas and inshallah share some nasiha, first and foremost for myself and then for all of us collectively, so we can reflect upon these things and take them to heart inshallah and do with them what needs to be done if they are deserving of your attention and your time. So first, the fifth pillar of Islam gets described in so many different ways and exists in the corpus and tradition of Islam with so many variances that speak of its value and its richness, that it's very, very hard to find a spot or a corner to talk about something that is not covered already or talked about at length in some other places by people who are infinitely more qualified to talk about the topic. So I thought that in order to reflect on it today, I'll pick only two very small themes inside it. That is not to say that I chose those because I do not do justice to the other elements because other people do, but these two, I don't see them very often covered when we talk about this fifth pillar, which I thought it might be helpful to put them in front of us. So item number one, into the reflection about preparing for Hajj. Subhanallah, that in the writings of Imam al-Ghazali, in Ihya Ulum al-Din, he has a book that he titles in the following way. He calls it the Book of the Secrets of Pilgrimage, Kitab Asrar al-Hajj. And then when he goes through it, he covers quite a bit. It's incredibly rich and copious of the various thoughts and ideas that he puts forth in them. But there is one that has always stuck with me because it's a rather counterintuitive way to think about Hajj, specifically as it got modernized in the way that it gets experienced today. So one of the things that he puts in as a piece of advice is the idea that when we strive to go to Hajj, the one thing that we should never strive to achieve is comfort. And the way that he begins by explaining this, he advises, although at his time it was feasible, today it would be absolutely impossible to do so, if not extremely hard, to go to Hajj on foot is what he recommended. You might say, what is wrong with the Khatib today? He doesn't live in 2024 to talk about this topic. He doesn't know that there are like these jet planes you can board from Boston, and a couple hours later you end up in some place where you can start your Hajj. So that's not the conversation that we are going to have. I was always very intrigued about why he gave this particular piece of advice. Because the generations that were before us, Al-Hajj is Ibadat al-Umr. It's the one lifetime of worship in the fifth pillar that has a unique status in the way that it was described as Ibadat al-Umr, a lifetime of worship and adoration and devotion that comes into a special moment. So ask yourself the following question. To make the most of that event, wouldn't you want to be acclimated to its reality? So what does acclimation mean here? For those of you who might be in some, who have adventurous souls and might be in some extreme sports or things like this, when you try to climb something above sea level and the air gets thin at the summit, one of the things that you do in order to get your body to handle the thin air is you move in steps so you can acclimate and you don't feel like you are gasping for air if you climb too fast, too quickly. And it's the same thing for diving. For people who do diving, as you start getting into deep diving, one of the things that you have to do to your body and to your breathing is you stop at specific stations and you allow your body to acclimate for getting into this. What I feel is extraordinarily insightful in the advice of Imam al-Ghazali when he spoke about this as being a desirable piece of advice when we go to Hajj is that when you go to this climax that culminates into being the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it takes acclamation. You have to take very deliberate, calculated steps where you sit at base camp and then you climb at another camp, then you climb at another camp until you reach the summit, and then tomorrow you stand on Arafah. I think that that's incredibly profound. But here is the gift of our religion. It's not the gift that gets given only to those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called to become Duyuf ar-Rahman and be amongst his people, that when he calls them by their name, they say, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. We are not there in body, but we are there in spirit. We too need to acclimate. Over these last days, we took steps. Whoever amongst us is someone who might have been a little lax in the priorities of what the deen asks for, has made a little bit of a turn and took seriously the execution of the deen in these last few days. Whoever might have been a little bit on the edge of not being careful about where the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are, became highly sensitive to them and took very specific steps to ensure that the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are painted in red and they are not broken in any way, form, shape. And as we walk our way and we prepare for this with amal al-khair and in al-intiha an al-munkar, we are slowly acclimating so we can come to that point that culminates in tomorrow. And what a beautiful day it is tomorrow to be in communion and to remember. Tomorrow is the day where we need to remember that while it is obviously our responsibility to get ourselves and our body parts to Jannah in order to be to the desire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, the ibadah in Arafah is also a social ibadah. Is to remember that that dua should have other entries into the book of dua. To remember those who have fallen on harder times than we are and invoke their names. To remember those who have lost their voice and they have nobody speak for them and remember their names. To remember those who have fallen in the name of freedom and of this deen and of this identity, and to stand to tyranny and to remember their names. And to remember those who do not know a day of peace, serenity, stability, and for them the sun doesn't rise. They should be on our book tomorrow. To have them in our memory, to have them in our heart, and to never, never forgo of our responsibility to say, we got you. Your name lives within us, and inshallah we will honor your sacrifices and we will honor everything that you have given for this religion, for yourselves, and for us on your behalf. Because that's what it means to be a Muslim. So that's the first element that I wanted to talk about with regard to preparing as we take the last base camp position to get on the summit tomorrow. Inshallah ta'ala, if Allah affords us the opportunity and the life to be there. The second point that I wanted to talk about Hajj that usually is not covered broadly. I have this idea that when we get entrusted with this gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, the khilafah job description that comes to us at our birth, and as soon as we come to bulugh and we take those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has programmed inside us to become the reality and the values by which we live, we become a little bit like a bull in a china shop. We break ourselves, we break the neighborhood, we break the family, we break the community, we break the ummah, and we just break glass all over the place. And alhamdulillah that there is one time in this time where we come together and where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us together at this place and at this time in order to heal us into the community, in order to heal us as individuals. And so the one thing that we should also remember tomorrow is the sense that it is a day where we heal back, where we put all of the shards and the broken pieces and all of the things that fall apart when we try to go through this thing that is called life, that we have to engage with at every time. We take a moment in the silence and we try to put it back together. Subhanallah, that in any form of effort that gets invested into the ibadah, everything is extremely demanding. Strangely enough, except in Hajj. There is no tahajjud in Hajj. There is no such thing. What do you do when you go to Muzdalifah? What's the main ibadah in Muzdalifah? You sleep. You just crash and sleep. That's the ibadah. And I think that's incredibly profound that that's the idea. In other words, when you find Allah in the right place, why do you exert yourself to go look for him where he is not? That's what this lesson is about. And in that spirit, tomorrow, we need to remember that. There is a Muzdalifah in each and every one of us, in the corner of our homes, where we can sit in silence and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a Nahr where we can take our egos, put them right on the ground, and slaughter them because they have been distracting us from finding the truth and seeing it, and from experiencing it. So yes, we can fully live the spirit of Hajj without necessarily being present into the precinct of Hajj. And that's the spirit of what the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because hasha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never ever ever put a form of ibadah, the design of which is to be elitist and exclude others from it. Every ibadah is fully inclusive for those who can and for those who cannot. Those who can afford it and those who cannot afford it, because it's available to all of us. So that's the first theme that I wanted to start with to kick this sermon into high gear. The second theme I want to talk about is then what? The Eid will come and go, and now it's the beginning of the summer, And for most of us, and specifically for those who have been students, it's time to kick it into very, very, very slow gear and take life easy. Have no idea where this idea came from, to be very honest, to be very candid. And I did research it diligently. I have no idea where in the tradition of Islam, the idea of closing off an entire season in life and make it the time wasting zone where we just check out. Last I checked, since the Prophet ﷺ received his risala, last I checked, he never took a vacation. I don't remember reading in any book of Manaqib that Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu took a vacation, or Sayyidina Umar took a vacation, or Sayyidina Uthman took a vacation, or any of the other people took a vacation. So where is this coming from? This is what happens when we absorb culture without seriously reflecting on what we do and what it is. This Muslim Ummah has been on vacation for the last 500 years. And that's why today we pay the prices that we pay. Because we checked out already 500 years ago. So we don't have time to stop, is always what I say. We do not have time to binge on things that are passive. We do not have time to go to sleep because we are too tired. Because being tired is not an option. In this ummah we have too much to do. How much we need to do it fast, and we have too much to catch up for. Not because somebody else told us so, but because we hold ourselves at the highest standard that there is. So subhanAllah, I'll tell you a little story. It's a very, very well-known story because everybody knows that fragment of it, but there is this tiny piece that is not equally shared. The Prophet ﷺ buried his son Ibrahim when he died, rahmatullahi alayh. And because he was heartbroken, he didn't go down into the grave with him. Two of the companions took the blessed body and put it into the ground. And then they climbed up. And they were about to head away. And the Prophet ﷺ turns to the freshly covered grave and he said, go back and fix the two stones that mark the tombstone of the grave. The stone that you put at the foot and the stone that you put at the head, they are not arranged properly. Go back and arrange them. I tell you, this hadith, every time I go about it and I read it in the seerah, my mind explodes. I'm trying to understand, what in God's name does this mean? Any human being, when you lose a child, when you use your child, and you bury your child before he buries you, it's the end of the world for you. How can the Prophet ﷺ at that time, much like Yaqub before him, and much like Zechariah before him, and much like Ibrahim before him, he was waiting for a son to come in his family. The son gets given to him, arrives at 2 years of age, Allah decides to take him back. He goes to his burial place, and the Prophet ﷺ is worried about a piece of stone. What's that about? He told them, it's in the books of Sirah, he told them. They told him he died. So what about fixing things about somebody who already died and he's not going to look at it? He said, no, you fix it for the aesthetic eyes of the living, not for the person who died. Think about what that means. Think about the standard that the tarbiyah of this prophet is trying to hold us to. Think about the implication of what that means. That's the standard that we have to hold ourselves to. No, we don't have, if you are a high school student and you have just graduated, then congratulations. And if you are a college student and you have just graduated, then congratulations. May Allah put barakah in your work, in your future, and in your career. But don't you ever go check out now, and for all of the nights where you have made it to work very, very hard, you say, now is the time for me to check out from everything. I'm going to put my brain in park, and for a period of time, I'm just going to chill. No, chill is not your vocabulary, and you are not allowed to do this to yourself. because everything around you will eat and gnaw at your investment, and you will find yourself worse off than you have started, because you have an obligation to yourself, to your Prophet, to your deen, and to your ummah to not do this to yourself. So let me tell you where I took this from. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Saba, وَمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ بِالَّتِي تُقَرِّبُكُمْ عِنْدَنَا زُلْفَى. It's not your children or your wealth or your status or whatever that is going to draw you near to us or accrue you in your status. إِلَّا مَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ جَزَاءُ الضَّعْفِ. Except for those who work and do what is righteous, to them the benefits will be multiplied. So the metrics here are really metrics about effort. I always say this about Islam, and I wish I could be heard more, and I wish I could hear myself more. Because I always say that Islam is a meritocracy. It's all based on how much you put into the system. I think there is a say by Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, karamallahu wajhahu, who said one day that one of the things that is extraordinary in the juxtaposition between the dunya and the akhirah is when the dunya comes and it calls you, and when the akhirah comes and it calls you, they call you to two polar opposites. In this dunya, you work, but the accountability is not imminent. In the akhirah, the accountability is there, but the work cannot affect it. So make your choice judiciously as to what you need to do, and know where you need to be going with the investment of every minute in your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Mu'minun says, Ya ayyuha rusulu. He's talking about the best of creation, or you who are messengers that he has sent. He's messengers here. I'm not talking about the mailman that when he goes around. Kulu min at-tayyibat. Go ahead, enjoy yourself and consume from the good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made available to you. وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. And then go ahead and do what is righteous. Inni bima ta'maluna alim. Verily, I am all knowing of that what you do. Hard work. Hard work is something that every Muslim has to take very, very seriously. Hard work is the standard by which every Muslim has to live. Accountability for the blessing of time and intellect and health are the things that no Muslim is allowed in any circumstances to go and squander. Why? Because the summer months are the lazy months. So subhanallah, it's very, very easy to look at the heroism of the people who have arrived at the pinnacle of our religion and who have become the lights that have guided this religion through the generations of time to time. You look at the people who are the ulama of hadith. And I encourage each and every one of us to go back and read in the tabaqat the forms of their manaqibs that are part of their biographies to understand what these people had brought to the table and how much that they have done. I read that in order for them to not miss one sentence from a halaqah of hadith, they would not stand from the place in times that go from morning to evening. They would not leave the place, and they would bring with them dry bread, and they would put the dry bread in their mouth and immediately follow it with a sip of water so they can moisten it and literally swallow it without chewing, for fear that they might miss a moment. And then in missing that moment, they miss the treasure of a lifetime. I think that the spirit that needs to galvanize our community to feel a sense of being maniacal about contributing to the deen, maniacal about contributing to our development, and more importantly, maniacal about being true to the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in time, in energy, in health, in resources, and in possessions in our lives, to be entrusted with them and do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from us to do with them, which is to please Him with these gifts that He has given us, and not go squander them because of one thing to the other, because we have come upon the lazy months, the months where we can take it easy and relax. No, there is no such thing as taking it easy and relax in any way, form, shape. And I want to conclude with leaving you maybe with one closing thought. I find that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in Surah Al-Isra, and He says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, verily we have ennobled the son of Adam. وحملناهم في البر والبحر, and we have carried them into the land and the sea, I mean taking care of their transportation and making sure that they get to their destination. ورزقناهم من الطيبات, and we have bestowed upon them all that is good in wholesome. وفضلناهم على كثير مما خلقنا, and we have preferred them over a lot of things that we have created, is a reminder that every step, whether it comes from our children or the degree that you have just been certified to have, or the matriculation that you have just been able to get gifted with, or whatever the case might be, is to never ever take it for granted and understand that that gift, yes, it is the output of your hard work, but above all, it is also the gift from your creation. And so to never take it for granted and expect it to be entitled. Because one of the things I don't understand where it came from. I'm sorry? Something? Oh, something is coming? Okay. All right. Barakallahu fikum. We'll stop inshallah here. Wastaghfirullah li wa lakum fastaghfiruhu fa innahu mustaghfirun. So that's how short it can be. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا الا غفرته ولا هما الا فرجته ولا دينا الا قضيته ولا مريضا الا شفيته ولا مبتلا الا عافيته ولا ضالا الا هديته ولا غائبا الا رددته ولا مظلوما الا نصرته ولا ميتا الا رحمته. عباد الله اوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله واقم الصلاه ان الصلاه تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.